All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Colman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. I have my latest guest here in front of me. We have Damien, the permaculture garden designer of the year. We're going to label him as. All right, as he smiles and is delighted to be introduced as that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Colman. Glad to be here.
Damien, I suppose I brought you on, to emphasize the fact of what you're currently doing. And I suppose I can let yourself expand on the point of your eco garden and you going around to different locations, and suppose just tell the listeners who you are and a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah. So what I'm doing at the minute is I do a couple of things in the main. So I have an eco natural garden design business, and that's based around permaculture principles, that kind of thing. Maybe talk a bit more about that in a minute. So that's kind of gardening with nature, with biodiversity, that kind of thing. So try and avoid things like hard landscaping wherever we can, and no chemicals. So it makes it maybe a little bit more of a challenge, but then all great gardens do have a bit more of a challenge. So that's one side of things. And then I also spend a good portion of my time. I am working at a secondary school in Tramore Ardscoil, and there I run their outdoor learning program. So we have a fantastic, great big greenhouse that we got there. So we treat it as an outdoor classroom, and I work with a group of transition year students on a program, and there's a great teacher there as well that has devised a lot of the program, part of the Irish Sustainable Schools Network. And we bring classes out as part of their wellbeing activities, and we do all kinds of things with them. And so this week we've been doing a little bit on planting knapweed. So talking about the beauty of things like weeds and that kind of thing, talking a little bit about agriculture, food security, and it all changed through the year with all kinds of different things. So it's great fun, and they have a good time, and they even get to eat things as well from the greenhouse.
That's amazing. I have to say, people have been talking about this, inclusive of myself, to bring these different, I suppose, life skills. Growing is a life skill. Okay, it should be in every school in Ireland, and the way you're going, most certainly, it's going to be encouraged in more and more. Just, I suppose, as a matter of interest, what are the children's current knowledge before you get into them? Are they totally green, never mind, behind the ears, or do they have some idea, or what's their, I suppose, experience with yourself, inclusive of the classes?
Well, it's a bit of a mix. I mean, in general, probably there is less knowledge than those that have a great knowledge of about gardens and nature, that kind of thing. But you can't make any assumptions, and you get some great kids in there as well. And I think probably what we're seeing, some of the younger kids that are coming from primary and their first year into secondary, they've maybe got a bit more of an understanding of background, maybe reflects some changes that are going on in primary level. There are some great primary schools here in Tramore. But some kids have got absolutely no knowledge of it whatsoever, which is reflective of what goes on in our lives. But then we had a kid in last week, and I was chatting away, and he was stroking his chin a little bit, and he's admiring the tomatoes that we had growing. He says, what tomatoes you got? Are you growing any beefsteaks? Oh, we're not growing any beefsteaks these years. What about San Mazzanos? You got any San Mazzanos? Well, yeah, we have. So those over there are San Mazzanos. So, oh, yeah, good tomato, yeah. So you have a good chat. And so, particularly some that have come from, they've got parents that are into nature gardening, that kind of thing. But then also, because we're sort of semi-rural islands, then there's a lot of kids from a farming background as well, so they do tend to know quite a bit more as well. So we have some great old debates about that kind of thing.
Amazing. I love it. The more and more, I suppose, people get involved in this, the better. It's great that it's transition year. Is this the first year that it's supposed to certainly been done, or do you also, even another question on top of that, do you plan to expand into other neighbouring schools and or counties?
Well, so it's the brainchild, if you like, of a great teacher there, science teacher, Patrick Kirwan. So he ran a very similar thing in the UK, and a bit like himself, he came back to Ireland, and he is behind the Irish Sustainable Schools Network. and he has like replicated a lot of what he was doing in the UK with a program out there about bringing nature into schools and then changing it for what we have in our, and also then learning from what was done over there. But then also because there isn't transition year in the UK, it's something they miss out on. In my opinion, it would have been great when I was at school there. So we've got this program together. So this is the second year that we've been running it in this way with the school. So we bring in a group of transition year students, and we've got, well, how many we've got nearly 30 of them that we're bringing on the program this year. So we do some things in the greenhouse. They get to do some teaching, and they learn lots of different practical things. And then as a group who are doing things with the kids in the school, they take tutor groups, they'll do projects and activities, that kind of thing. And so what we're trying to do as well, so we've been speaking with, so we're trying to involve parents, the local community as well, but then also different teachers from the same school group, but then also from different schools from around. Because the ideal would be that every school does this. Every school has access to these kind of facilities, and people like myself as well who can come in and teach this. And we had a visit last week. So the Green Party Thinking was in Tramore. So we invited them down. So we had Minister Ryan come and see what we're doing, and had a chat with the kids, sampled some of our produce as well. So had a great time. So it's an opportunity to bend someone's ear in power as well. So this, so what we'd like is that it makes its way onto the national curriculum as well. So it's then properly funded is the big thing. So we kind of do this on a little bit of a wing and a prayer, with some great support from businesses in Waterford as well. And without that kind of thing, at the minute, it wouldn't happen, because it's not cheap to run these if it's not centrally funded as well.
Of course, and it's great that you are starting most certainly small, and then hoping to further expand out the other side of it. What's I suppose, I'm going to ask specific questions in relation to the classes. So what are the, I suppose, end goal for each of the students? Do they sow their own seeds? Do they look after them each week? Or is there different projects involved in? I'm just kind of curious myself.
Yeah, well, it's different. I mean, the big challenge we've got is that the school year doesn't align itself with the growing year, which then, the irony of that is probably that that's because of things like the big summer holidays, and the big summer holidays were because you go back 100, 200 years, and then there was a largely rural populations in UK and in Ireland as well. So the kids will be working on the farms and also being part of the growing and the harvesting. But that obviously doesn't help us with our growing year. So it does change. So we do different things at different times of the year. So we'd still nice and warm outside. We've got a good bit of light. So we have been doing some sowing of seeds, or weed seeds. We've been doing this week a bit of knapweed and a bit of campion we've been doing. So they actually make some little paper pots, fill the pots, plant the seeds, and then we're going to look after those for them. And then, because they'll come into the greenhouse, each class will come in about once a month through the year. So they'll come in different times. So hopefully next time they come in, those things will have germinated, and we'll either plant them out at the school, or if we've been really successful and we've got loads of them, then they can maybe take them home, plant them in the garden, or sneak them into a bit of their local community, that kind of thing. But we'll do different things. So as then we move into the winter, we'll do things. So we have a lot of fun breaking apart pallets. We get some big pallet breakers in, that kind of things. So they get to smash them up. We take the nails out. And then we'll make some things like we'll make bug hotels, bee hotels, bird boxes, bug doors. And we're going to be making some bird feeders out of pine cones and seeds and raisins and fat, that kind of thing. So we do those kinds of different things, different times of the year. And then as we then get into the January again, so even though it's still the depths of winter, we've got the right gear, which then means we can start sowing again. So we all start, so things like the tomatoes, peppers, those kinds of things, aubergine, we can start sowing those. They get to see that. And then they'll get to be a bit more hands-on with planting stuff as they get through to the end of the school term in May as well. So they do a whole range of things. Well, we will vary it a little each year as well as things change within the school, and we're gradually trying to take over a little bit more of the school grounds, that kind of thing. So we've got a bit more of a rounded experience, and also then they're a bit more surrounded in nature as well. So it's not just them coming to the greenhouse and seeing stuff, but then we've got veg beds, we've got flower beds. We're about to put a pond in, that kind of thing. So there's a whole bunch of different things that we'll have, and it's trying to bring. So it's so there isn't nature's not something that happens over there. Nature is something that's all around us. We are part of nature, and they get to experience more of that. I think it's his general aim.
Yeah, that's the key for, I suppose, education for people going, I suppose, into these schools, that they literally get a rounded, I suppose, overall education in relation to schooling and in health related, because this is a healthy activity, not just for the advantage of the foods that they sample, but for mental health, and that's a huge part to play in it. The idea that when we touch the soil, anyone, whether kids or adults, there's that production of serotonin. Serotonin is the happy hormone, which more and more people need and gained advantage from.
It is. I mean, I was telling them about that, and so my job is I will teach the TYs, and then kind of my part of it then finishes, because once the kids come into the classroom, I set things up, and then it's the TYs that will then teach the students. So I've been teaching the TYs about the importance of getting nice and dirty fingernails, and about the serotonin. Then the amount of times I've now heard as the classes have come in, and I can hear wafting over from different parts of the greenhouse to different groups, they're all talking about serotonin. And there was one lad, he heard about it, and he went, well, I can be happy from the soil. And that was it. He picked up a load of compost, and he was rubbing his hands together, and his palms were black. And he says, right, I'm not washing my hands for the rest of the day. I'm going to get all that serotonin into my hands. And so it is great to have some of those conversations. And then when we're able to, the look on their face, when they said, well, yeah, you can I eat the tomatoes? Of course you can. That's exactly what they're there for. You eat the tomatoes, you go and have an explore, and they'll be eating the nasturtium flowers and the borage flowers that we got growing, and having a great time. It's brilliant.
That's an experience of a lifetime. I'm someone who's from the country, Kilmeaden, and even ended up writing a book on the benefits of all organic foods. But until I started growing my own, I'd no, I suppose, background. My mother and father were psychiatric nurses in what an actual tomato tasted like. And that's one of the simple things that huge abundance of children say, Mom, Dad, I actually don't like vegetables. Why? Because they haven't really been eating them. They've been eating the muck that's in the shops, that's valued at 49 cents, but even at that, that's really putting a major downer on it. Real food is grown in the soil in your locality, and when you can harvest, you can sow the seed, you can harvest it, and then gain the massive experience of the explosion of flavors and antioxidants and benefits when it hits your tongue.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, we had just as a comparison, so we got a polytunnel here at home as well, and we can grow some stuff in there. We still have to get things in from the shops, but some of our homegrown peppers had matured, some of the sweet peppers, and we had one, and we'd also got in one from the supermarket as well. And then you looked at them side by side, and the first thing that struck you was the weight difference. The homegrown one was a lot heavier, a lot denser, and then the color, the richness in the homegrown one. Then you cut it, and the smell, and then just eating them raw, the taste in them was. There was no comparison. And the kids experience the same thing when they come in and they eat the tomatoes. And there would be, because we've got some peppers growing there, they were chomping away on the peppers as well. And they couldn't believe the flavor of them. And what did we have? We'd sown some carrots last January, and they were just about ready by the end of term. And there was, once the word had got out that we got carrots, there was a queue going out the door of the polyton. I was pulling them out as fast as I could, and then we're then going washing them under the tap, and then chomping straight away. And that was it. Didn't want to peel them or anything, just straight out of the ground like a Bugs Bunny cartoon or something. It was brilliant.
Yeah. Again, that's amazing. There's so many children that would have never experienced that to date. And the idea is you have the advantage of a polytunnel, and again, they might even need to see the netting, because a lot of people don't even know what's actually involved and how long the things take to grow, such as like the tomatoes sown in February and not harvested till midsummer, and then when they come back into school they're like, oh my god, we sowed these tomatoes way back last year. As a result of that, that's something that they understand. food takes such a long time to grow, and it might even reduce and benefit the likes of food waste, which is a massive thing that's happening at this moment in time.
Oh, it does. And then what we're trying to do is introduce a bit of empathy as well. So we talk about things to do with climate change and biodiversity. So some of the conversations we've been having this week and the last couple of weeks about what's going on, the climate is starting to become less reliable than it was before. It's putting it mildly. And talk about what's going on in Spain but when they had that ridiculous heat wave back in April, it was 40 odd degrees. And so we're showing them this is what the temperatures were like. And this is what it meant for the farmers. So we read some newspaper articles, some headings from those. And it was too hot for the farmers to plant the crops. So we're trying to, well, what do? So then get them to play that through. What does that mean if the farmer can't plant their crops? And they then, well, okay, yeah, well, all right, they can't plant them. So they then don't earn any money. And then if that's their job and that's what they enjoy doing as well, then it's going to make them a bit depressed as well. And it makes them more worried for the future. And then thinking about yourselves, well, what's that going to mean? If for things that show there's less stuff available in the shops, there might not be the variety. There is, it might cost more, that kind of thing. So trying to get a bit of understanding and empathy. And then also, well, why it's then important for us to try and grow more things ourselves as well. But then when you do grow them, don't they taste great?
Yeah, the taste is different. That's one of the huge things that I get people to do, is that I've never, I suppose, experienced. They say organic foods might be worth it, or there's no difference. I just say, literally, just taste this. And I would typically get maybe the sweetest, maybe cherry tomato that's on the vine, and say, look, I know you've been eating tomatoes, but just taste that, maybe Rosella, Rosada, Sun Gold, any one of those sweet cherry tomatoes, and blow the socks completely off them. They're like nature's candy. They're unbelievably sweet.
Oh yeah, I mean we deliberately grew Sun Golds because we knew how sweet they are. And I tell them, you'll love these because they're not like eating tomatoes. And they are like eating sweets. They're so sweet and they're so juicy. And every class we've been able to pull some tomatoes off the vines at the back, and we hand them around. Yeah, and not everybody wants one because not everybody likes tomatoes. Or if some people have tried tomato and think, I'm not really sure about it. But we always get rid of all of the tomatoes. They've all gone by the end of the session. And then they'll be looking for other things. And they'll be going into the cucumbers, and how's that cucumber ready? Can I have that cucumber? So they'll be taking the cucumbers away, and it's fantastic.
It is, and I suppose it's full cycle. If you're involved in them with the likes of February sowing of tomatoes, right now you can start saving those seeds and getting children to understand that that's, I suppose, the whole idea of things. You sow a seed, and literally from that 100 tomato fruits can most certainly appear if it left trail or trained up like a string line. Then come September, then come into October, you can literally save those seeds, put them on a windowsill and dry them out, put them into a brown envelope. Then the cycle starts again for your younger brother or sister or friend that's in the class in the year below you.
Oh yeah, it is. It's great. We did little seed saving. We ran a summer club as well. So we did some seed saving over the summer from some of the peas that we'd left in the greenhouse. So we got some peas for next year. But then we also went out and did a bit of seed saving from some of the wildflowers. We'd also grown some of the blue poppies. The flowers aren't blue, but the seeds are blue. So they're the ones that get sprinkled on the bagels, that kind of thing, on the bread. So I said, right, we'll save some of those. So our harvest was a little bit so. We're still growing areas, it's still a bit on the small side. So we can have maybe enough seeds for a handful of bagels, but we have got enough to grow even more this year. So they're all excited about sowing their seeds, and then they'll have something they can take into home ec class, and we'll do some bagels, that kind of thing. So that's part of what we want to do as well. So it then becomes a bit of a whole school package as well. So as we increase our growing space, maybe a little bit outside as well, we can then grow more things. Then maybe we can link it into the home ec departments. They can take things from that are grown in the school, and you can make some of the tomato sauces, and you can bring the onions in, some of the herbs, that kind of thing. But then also linking as we've got more things going on around the school, both growing and biodiversity, that kind of thing. Then getting some little art projects going on, and they got some signage around the place, and maybe a little nature trail, that kind of thing. We were a brilliant school. We went on a visit last school year to a community school in Kinsale, which was fantastic. They're doing some brilliant stuff down there. And one of the things that they had, and I think it gets given out to all the new entrants to the school, is this wonderful hand-drawn map of the school, and it describes where everything is in the school. But then they've got all of the stuff that goes on, all the projects they do, including the bit where they've got the steep bank that they can't get the mower on. So there's a guy who brings in some goats, and he brings in the goats to eat the grass. They don't have to cut the grass, and then he goes off. And they got great stuff, and it was fantastic. But the thing one thing they all loved, and they all said, "Can we move to that school?" Is again, it's all part of that well-being thing. Is they had a school dog, and the queue down to where the school dog was a mile long. It was fantastic. A brilliant school. So loads of sharing of ideas, that kind of thing. There's great stuff going all around the country, and so there's loads of things that we can take from there as well.
Yeah, and that's about it, about sharing ideas. And that's exactly why I brought you onto the show, because the people listening now will go, oh my God, that's it. Now we're going to really be saving up for our glasshouse or polytunnel. After that, we're going to get, I suppose, the school involved, and then one follows the other. You're incorporating the home ec, you're incorporating in the exercise, whether that's harvesting the potatoes. It's I suppose, a full life cycle of learning in all the different subjects that the school has to offer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they get to do so many things as well. So the last year's group of TY students that I brought in as the teachers, we got them to do various things, and some of them had never held a saw before. Some of them had held saws, but then been told by their woodwork teacher, "Please don't take up woodwork," because they were so bad. They did take a little bit of training, but they were then able to not only saw things up safely, they could make things out of the bits of pallet wood they'd sawn up, and they were able to teach the other kids that came in as well. And then so everybody's making this stuff, and we're reusing things, and there's things that we've taken away and they can take home, and and it's around the school grounds. And definitely a really quite a nicely rounded bit of education.
Is there anything that stands out in your mind, Damien, since I suppose you started this project? You go, I remember when this child came in day one, they hadn't a clue, and now I've seen them develop throughout, I suppose, education that they're currently getting inside this. Is there anything that stands out in your mind kind of vividly?
I think there's probably a couple, two or three of the kids that we had in. And so I mean, they'd learned so many things, and they've picked up so many different skills. But a big part of it is maybe as much as they were teaching about nature and they wanted to enjoy about nature. For some of them, it's a social side of things and a developmental side. And there were some kids that came in and they absolutely wouldn't say boo to a goose. And when we said to them at the beginning, right, what you're going to do is we're going to teach you these things, and then you're going to learn this presentation. You're going to make it your own. You're going to stand up in front of a class of 30 kids, and it's from first years right the way through to we even had some 6 years in as well. So quite a range, and it'd be their peers as well. And then not only that, but then you are going to take groups of those classes, and you're going to be in charge of them, and you're going to be teaching them things, and they're going to have to listen to you. And the thought of it petrified them at the beginning, some of them. But by the end, in fact, not even by the end, about halfway through, they were absolutely fantastic at it. And it's not only that they'd competently learned how to do it, they'd then taken it and they'd made it their own. And they'd done things that you can't do, because I'm a lot older than your average teenager. They're the same age. So they know they're able to speak to and connect to those kids in ways that we can't, because there's that age gap and different life experiences. But they were bringing a whole different thing, and they were learning. They'd learn on the fly, and it was that whole situational awareness type of thing. So they've got that confidence and those abilities, and they've become brilliant teachers and presenters by the end of it. And that was, I think, probably one of the biggest and best things that we've seen, that transformational change in some of those kids over the course of that year.
Yeah. When one child is able to teach another, passing on life skills, which in fact, growing is a dying trade. People are actually have lost touch where food has come from completely.
Absolutely. And I mean, that comes through in some of the conversations as well. And it's also interesting then to see how the kids might react compared with how their teacher might react. We had it several times. We had it again this week. So whether it's pulling a carrot out the ground and a kid saying, right, I'll just wash it under a tap and then chomp away, and then you hold do the same thing. You give a teacher to a carrot and they say, yeah, okay, well I'll take it home. So they don't want to eat it there and then. Or when we're eating we've got things like the nasturtiums and the borage flowers, and the kids say, can I eat that? You go, yeah, you can eat that. And they'd be chomping away, and the teacher stood next to you saying, would you like? Well, not so sure. And that kind of thing. So, and I think that is reflective, I think, of where we got to. So when you're young, you've still got some of that adventurousness. Yeah, and I'll try that and that kind of thing. But what we've got a group of adults of all kinds of different ages, generations, that kind of thing. From you're right. You've got that distance between us and nature has got so big that then the thought of eating something that's not come out of a plastic bag in a supermarket is quite alien. And it's not to say anything against the teachers. They're all great teachers. They're the same as the rest of us. And you think, well, I don't know. You say that you've been growing in that, and you put horse manure on that, and you put seaweed on it, and well, yeah, I'll take one home. It's we've got to kind of undo all of that and get that connection back with nature and your own food again, because as you know, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do is, I suppose, break down these barriers and get people to do what they've previously done for years and generations and centuries. Like, go back as far as our parents. Everyone would have had, or even our grandparents, everyone would have had literally potatoes and carrots and turnips outside in the back garden. As a result of that, there would have been at least one apple tree, one cooking. They might have had a plum tree. Again, literally, there's very little too, the likes of fruit trees, and that is something that I'm trying to encourage myself, every school in Ireland, to have the likes of a fruiting tree. So literally, they flower when the children are in school. No maintenance to a tree, very little. Even if you don't know how to prune it, it'll still give you fruit. Flowering typically in April, we'll say the likes of an apple tree, and then the fruits are coming into season around September and October, which are then natural, again, prebiotics for the benefit of the children and the teachers and anyone else there.
Oh, it is, and it's so that's one of the things that we're doing. There was already a small orchard that had been started at the school, so we added to that. So there's various free trees that get given out every year, so we've added to that little orchard. And then rather than them just being solitary little trees planted in the ground as well, what we're trying to do is introduce some of the permaculture thinking, where you then you've got a plant guild in there. So you've got the tree in the center, and then you've got other complementary plants that sit around. I mean, some of them, they might just be wildflowers there that we've they kind of look nice. They're there for the pollinators as well, so there's a bit of food. But then we might also throw in maybe a little bit of spinach we've been growing in there as well, maybe a bit of beetroot. So you're trying to introduce some veggies, that kind of thing. And also what you're then doing is you're keeping the grass away from the trunk of the tree, so helping the young trees to develop. They're not competing with the grass. And then gradually what we're trying to do then as well is further increase those spaces. So it's not just you start off with a little tree on its own, then a tree with some flowers around it, and then hopefully that then becomes a bit of a bigger bed. And then we've maybe got some paths that are going through the orchard. We've maybe got some chairs in there. So you then actually, as it then starts to grow up around you, you're then sitting in amongst nature as well. You can then spend time in it. And schools can be challenging places for all number of different reasons. So it's then maybe a place for a little bit of quiet, a bit of solace. You've just got some of the bees around you, that kind of thing, and just offer a different experience for the kids.
Amazing. Turn it into, I suppose you would call it, an outdoor classroom, which is actually a completely different setup to the directly square windows where you have artificial light, which doesn't really tend well for attention span, because light is actually, especially natural light, is one way of increasing anyone's attention. It naturally wakes up the body, which would help children retain more information. So these are things that we, again, are just trying. And you are doing a great job in doing it.
Well, it is, I think, and you speak to the teachers that come down with their classes as well, and I think just the fact that they're outside is a big thing. Even if they do nothing else and they don't pay any attention to what we're trying to teach them, they don't care about plants, they don't care about nature, they're outside, it's in a different environment, and that in itself can do good things for them. But I mean, it's interesting because you see a lot of classrooms now these days as well, they've got the little carbon dioxide monitors in there, and to show how much ventilation the classrooms are getting. You know, it's obviously more CO2, the drowsier you get, that kind of thing. And so it's being outside, you got all of that fresh air. Sometimes it's very fresh, particularly in the middle of winter. It can get a bit nippy down in there, but it keeps them on their toes. So we've got the kettle and the biscuits down there as well, so we can offer them a little bit of refreshment, that kind of thing. But it is, and just being in all of that light and different environments, it's great. But then also as well, it's when they realise they're actually going to be taught by the TY students as well. It's a little bit like a switch flicks on, because you know they might be staring. This was stood there with a fairly blank faceless expression while I'm saying hello and introducing things, that kind of thing. I don't take it personally. But then we hand them over to the TYs, and then they're immediately much more engaged. We see it. We see it all the time. It's a different thing. It really adds to the whole experience.
No, it's a super idea, and it's a great, I suppose, model for anyone who'd love to take it up and incorporate it into their own school. And it's simple. It's simple things. It's healthy habits. And as you said, if the child is just outside alone, there's benefits to it. So when we actually think of it, if whether it's ourselves or the children that are outside, they gain the advantage of fresh air, sunlight, serotonin. And then if you're eating the foods, you have better fiber. You've literally better health, you better gut health, you better immune system. It's all a massive knock-on effect. And when we start, sow a seed today to gain the advantage in the future.
Absolutely, yeah, it is, and it's this particular school. I mean, they're lucky to have it. So there's a whole bunch of things that have come together. There's a really supportive management team in there, so they've delved into the school finances. You've got a great teacher who's driving it. Then there's someone like me who comes in and can take the class as well. And then, being brutally honest as well, we've got some corporate sponsorship to help fund this, because you need the space to put in a big greenhouse like this. You then also, they're not cheap, so it does require some funding. So you've got a whole bunch of things that have come together that allowed this to happen. And then you look around all the other schools, and unless you've got all of those things that have come together, it's really difficult for this opportunity to be made available to kids. But get it on the national curriculum, and then it becomes funded, and schools haven't got to try and find all these different things. They haven't got to scrape things. They can fund the right people and that kind of thing. And then everybody gets the opportunity that they should all be getting. And especially there's now, more than ever, we teach them a whole bunch about nature, biodiversity, that kind of thing, and avoiding waste. We do a talk, which I think the last year's students are probably still muttering and chuntering about and hating me a little bit, because we talked about how important wee and poo, that kind of thing are, and how those are really important, and what you can do with your wee, and not to be all icky about it, that kind of thing. All these kinds of things, they're so important, and we're going to become more and more important in the years to come as well. It's really that every kid should have this kind of opportunity.
Yeah. No, with Damien, as I said, you're doing a super job there. And what I want to do, even just before, and just conscious of your own time, where's the best place for people or individuals to get in contact with yourself, and or be involved, or just have even a question that they would love to shoot over to yourself?
Okay, so you can contact me on my website. There's there's a form there. So that's where I do my, that's based around my garden design. So that is green-life.ie. Oh, sorry, the green-life.ie. Get my website wrong, that's not good. That's probably the best place to contact me. But then also what we're doing at the schools, the school itself is Ardscoil Namara in Tramore. So they've got a very active Twitter account that promotes that kind of thing. So we're always putting things on about the greenhouse there as well. So you can find us through there, and on Twitter, Waterford Permy is who I am. So again, you can contact me on Twitter that way as well.
Perfect job. All right, Damien, I will most certainly putting all those in the likes of the show notes at the end of this podcast. And I always, firstly, to say thanks so much for coming on and giving me your valuable time and your experience in helping this school in particular and further ones in the future. And I always end these shows by saying stay tuned